prospectus, what's the plural, prospecti for shareholders. They had newspapers of the day, and a little ivory elephant, which we've never really been able to explain, but when Howard was talking, we saw the elephant in the architectural drawings and wondered if there maybe was some kind of a parallel that way, not sure. But get a chance to soak it all in, a place where Mr. Kelly and Mr. Ellis, Mr. McFarlane certainly spent a great number of hours through the years so successfully. So this is a real treat, an absolute treat for all hockey fans, not just Toronto Maple Leaf fans. There was a second dynasty, as I mentioned earlier in the day, for the Toronto Maple Leafs in the 1960s. It started with Puck Jim Lack, Johnny Bower, and the securing of Red Kelly from the Detroit Red Wings as well, and went on to win 4 Stanley Cup championships through the next several years. And so it was a fabulous time for the city, for the country, and for hockey fans everywhere. And we're just delighted to have some of the proponents of that dynasty here with us today too. Red Kelly had already won 4 Stanley Cup championships by the time he came to Toronto in 1960, and surprise, one of the top defensemen in all of NHL history all of a sudden is told, you're going to be playing center. Ron Ellis joined the team in 1964. He was still in high school at the time, if you can believe that. Spent his entire career with Toronto. In fact, if you take it back even further, one of the only people that we can think of who spent their entire career from minor hockey right through to the National Hockey League, all with one franchise. And he's the highest scoring right winger in Leafs history, 332 goals right here, 640 points is behind only George Armstrong on the Leafs all-time list. And joining the 2 Leafs that I just mentioned is someone equally well known. Brian McFarlane was a pioneer in broadcasting. He added color commentary to the Hewitts as they let us know what was happening in the play-by-play on those Hockey Night in Canada broadcasts that we all watched. And Brian was on between 1964 and 1991. So please join with me in welcoming Red Kelly, Ron Ellis, and Brian McFarlane.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Kevin, you do a great job. It's nice to see you again. Ken Reed over there, a bright young broadcaster coming along in this area. And I thought Todd Deneau delivered a wonderful presentation about Gretzky and the record prior to lunch today. I'm dressed for the occasion. As you can see, I can still fit into this thing. That's the only reason I wear it. And things were a little testy at home this morning. I'm losing my hearing, as some of you know, and my wife said, "I'm proud of you, dear," and I said, "I'm tired of you too." But she always gets the last word. I can remember years ago I talked about certain things, but on our honeymoon, for example, I said, "You're awfully quiet when we make love." She said, "I wanted to moan, but I didn't have time." I'm not here to tell jokes. I'm here to say how pleased I am to be with Red and Ron. Boy, we go back a long way. I can remember interviewing Ron on CFTO when he was in Marlborough, and he had a little bit of a speech impediment, and I said, that guy's awfully brave to come on television and talk, because he soon overcame that, and he's a remarkable person, as is Red Kelly. In fact, when I first did hockey, it wasn't on Hockey Night in Canada, it was on CBS. They wanted a guy who could skate back in 1960. And I worked with Fred Cusick, the voice of the Bruins, and I had to put my skates on with about 3 minutes to go and come down from the broadcast booth, throw my skates on, get out there. And my first guest was Gordie Howe. Well, I had all my questions prepared on a little slip of paper. Don't get nervous. I go on the ice, and a redheaded guy came out of the room and came across the ice, and I said, I thought I was going to interview Gordie Howe. Red came over and he said, Gordie was hurt in the first period. I volunteered to be on. I didn't have any questions for Red. I don't think I'd ever met Red Kelly. But we got through it, I don't know how, and he was so gracious over the years, we become good friends. I don't want to do all the talking. This is their moment, and they don't have too long. So let's start with you, Red. 8 Stanley Cups, the only non-Canadian to have 8 Stanley Cups. Member of Parliament, your dog, your son pooping in the Stanley Cup. That's a great story. Or maybe it was something else. But how about you chipping in here now and tell the folks what they think you should be saying to them?
Well, it's just great to be here.
Can you hold the mic a little closer, Red?
Great to be here with you all, and it's the old gardens with the ice moved up a little higher. Of course, the gray seats are a little closer to the ice, and I used to stand behind the Blues when I was at St. Mike watching the Maple Leafs play, and I remember the last game that we won. We won the Stanley Cup in '67, and I was playing on a line with Mr. Ellis here on one side and Larry Jeffries on the other side. And Larry Jeffries broke his leg with about 6 games to go, I guess it was, and Brian Conacher came in and took his place. And we're playing the Canadians. We got to win the game. If we win the game, we win the Stanley Cup. And the play that scores the big goal, puck was just at the blue line, our blue line, and busted out to center ice. And I saw it, and I busted. And the Montreal defenseman decided to back up. He might have beat me to that puck, but or tied getting there, but he decided to back up. And as I look over, I see my winger coming, Ronnie Ellis, barreling down that outside, and I figured, well, I'll pull that defenseman over and I'll get the puck across to Ron, and Ron can get a good chance on the goal. Well, the defenseman fooled me. He stayed over with Ron. He didn't come over. And Gump Worsley was in net, and he came out. And the only thing that I thought, I just want you to know what goes on in your head when you're racing down the ice. You know, you don't have much time. You don't want anybody catching you from behind. And so I thought, I'm going to get the shot on the net, but I'm not going to put it up where the guy Gump can catch it and no more play. I said, so I shot it as hard as I could right along the ice. Worsley made the save. It hit his stick, went right over, and who gets the puck but Ron, and he fires it into the net. Open it. That was a big goal. That put us ahead of the Canadians, and we hung on to beat them 3-1 in overtime when Chief scored the winning the extra goal in the open net when they pulled their goaltender, and Stanley took the draw. He won the draw, and it came back to me, and I flipped it over a Canadian who was rushing at me over his stick to Pulford. And Pulford took about 2 strides and put it right across to Armstrong, and the Chief, you know, straight as an arrow, he put it right into the net. And that was it. They were gone. And I just want you to know that we won 8 Stanley Cups, and those 8 Stanley Cups Montreal didn't win.
Ronnie Ellis, what are your recollections of that great victory?
Well, testing, we okay here? Oh, I got a button somewhere? There we go. Testing, there we go. Perfect. As Red started off with, it's a real pleasure for me to be here. When I got the call from Kevin, he said, Red's going to be there. You and Red could do something together. And I said, if Red's going to be there, I'm there. That's what I think about this guy. He and his wife were so good to my wife and I. My wife and I weren't married when I turned pro, but we were dating. And Red's wife was just terrific with her as a young girl, the only single girl on the team at the time. And Anya and Andra took Jen under her wing and really took care of her. So we've always been very, very fond of the Kellys. And getting an opportunity to play on a line with Red Kelly for that whole season, basically, Red, it was wonderful. And we had a good season together with Larry on the left side, and as he mentioned, Larry got hurt and Brian Conacher fit in there just beautifully, and we held our own. But that goal was, we were just speaking a few minutes ago about another possible book theme. And I just mentioned to Kevin, well, what about a player's most important goal in their mind? And even the guys that score 500 goals, there's got to be one that stands out above all the others. And for me, that goal in Game 6 on the ice right here in this building, when Red and I broke out of the end together, that you got his version of it. My version is very similar. And when you play together the whole year like we did, you get to know the tendencies, and I could sort of see what Red was trying to do. I could tell he wanted to gain the blue line, and I was coming up from behind, trying not to get too far ahead to put this thing offside. But once he got the blue line, I was pretty sure he was going to shoot it on net and hopefully provide a rebound, and that's exactly what happened. And this was halfway through the second period. There was no scoring up to that point. It's about halfway through the second period, so the first goal of that game was going to be key. And Red, that's one I remember very fondly, and you're part of it, my friend.
Well, both of you fellows are authors. Ronnie, you wrote a great book a while back, and you touched on a subject that is kind of delicate, but you had a bout of depression, and I admired you for writing about it because I've had depression. A lot of people in this room have had depression, and they don't like to talk about it. But tell us a little bit what prompted you to put that message in your book.
Well, I'll try to be quick on this one. Again, my friend Kevin is very much involved in this. Kevin was on staff at the Hall of Fame doing a lot of writing for the Hall, and as many of you know, I've been working there for a number of years. And Kevin, in our discussions in the coffee room, said, "Ron, you should do a book." And I said, "Yeah, it's something I've thought of, and other people have suggested that as well." And of course, they want to hear the Stanley Cup story, the story, the Marley story, possibly. But I said to Kevin, if I do a book, I want it to be more than just a hockey book. Yes, I know the hockey's going to hold it together and it's going to be important. But if I do a book at this point in my life, I'd like to share some of the challenges I've had, and hopefully it would be helpful to others. And Kevin agreed, thankfully. He agreed, and so we started out. And yes, Brian, depression is a major health problem in our society today, and it even goes down into folks in university and kids in public school. I still do a fair amount of work in this area, trying to get rid of the stigma, if you like. I share with a lot of corporate people, a lot of human resources people, and we're making great strides. But back then, this was 1975-ish, just came off my best season in the league, playing on a line with Darryl Siddler, Tiger Williams, and we had a pretty good coach. Kelly, his name. It was the best year of my career from a production point of view, and I remember that summer I was trying to do a bit of training. We didn't train like they do today. We all had jobs in the summer, but I was doing a little and felt okay physically, but mentally there was I wasn't quite right. I just felt there was a cloud going over me, and I was just full of pessimism, and I just finished my best season in the league. What's going on here? So I went to training camp, played all the exhibition games, and I felt I had to do that because I didn't want to leave the game because I wasn't in shape, so to speak. I wasn't ready to play. So I decided in the last day of practice, Brian Glennie and I were doing some stretching. Ray had us out in the hallway there doing our stretching in our underwear. It was pretty colorful. And I said to Brian, I'm going to retire. And he just about hit the floor. This is my roommate for 8 years. He had no idea what was going on. And I really didn't know what was going on. I talked to Leaf Management. Red and I had a chat, and Red was very, very kind. And the main thing I tried to get across to Red and Jim Gregory, I believe, was I'm a team guy. I know how important chemistry is on the team. I don't want to be a player that's in the lineup and out of the lineup. And I said, for the time being, I think it's best I step aside. And it's certainly not a judgment on the Leafs in any way. Depression with professional athletes was unknown. No one talked about it. And so that's sort of what happened, and I retired for 2 years, not really knowing that I had depression. It was years later when I made my comeback, played another 4 years, and left the game because I couldn't play it to the level I wanted to, and I wasn't playing it at the level the Leafs wanted me to. So it was time to leave. And that's when depression got hold of me in a big way. And I won't go into all those details, but I actually had to take a year off work. I was hospitalized and went through that whole process, and thankfully got the help that I required. And I'm so pleased today to see not only athletes, but we'll talk about athletes today who are coming forward now. Silk and Lawman. You can just think of many, many more who have come out and shared. And I remember Carl Brewer said to me one time when it came out that he said, Ron, I was going through the same thing. And so it was there. We didn't know what to do with it. We didn't understand it. Our team doctors didn't know how to handle it. But fortunately now, with today's game, they have psychiatrists and psychologists on staff. If not on staff, they can be referred to these people and they can get help quickly. And that's the key, getting help quickly. And that's my message as I speak across our great country. That's enough.
Thanks, Ryan. I wonder if you were a bit depressed when Jack Adams traded you to the New York Rangers. Perhaps you can touch on that and how come you didn't go to the Rangers?
Well, yeah, that recalls a few memories, I guess. Jack was a tough competitor. He was a manager. He made trades and so on, and you had to expect that to happen in the professional life, that you could be traded. The reason that I decided overnight, I was told after the game playing against New York Rangers that he wanted to see me upstairs, so I went up to see him. And I'm hearing the people say as I'm going up in the Olympia Stadium, the corridor there, they're saying, you're traded, Kelly, you're gone, and all this. I didn't pay much attention to it because you get these stories back and forth all the time, and I never worried about it, and if it happens, I guess it happens. But I get upstairs, and he's sitting at his desk like Ron right here, and right behind him, Mr. Norris is standing. And now they say, okay, Kelly, we just traded you to New York for Bill Gadsby and Ed Check, and Billy McNeil is in the deal, and report to Muzz Patrick at the Leland Hotel at 8:30 in the morning. Well, I had just been married 6 months. I had eloped. I hadn't planned on getting married, and so I now have a wife to look after, and so I thought, I'll think about it. What do you mean you think about it? He puts a finger in my eye almost, and I said, I'll think about it. And I went out, and I'm not sure whether I slammed the door or not. I kind of just shoved it shut. I might have slammed it a little bit, I don't know. But anyway, I went home, stayed up all night, went to Mass the next morning, and called the Muzz Patrick at 8 in the morning, and prior to that, I'd called the Renewed shop, Renewed Tool Company, Sam, and to see if I could start work tomorrow morning, because I had a wife to look after, and she was just got word that she was expecting her first baby. So I called Muzz and I told him that I wasn't reporting, I was retiring, but I said it has nothing to do with the Rangers. They were already eliminated from the playoffs. No matter what you did going to New York, you couldn't get them into the playoffs. And the year before, in practice, I got a shot on my ankle bone on the boards, and it broke my ankle. And so nobody knew it except our team, of course, and they put it in a cast up over my knee. And that year we were having a little trouble team-wise. We were struggling a little bit, and the team went on the road and they lost 3 games in a row. So now they come to me and they say, "Red, can you take the cast off and we'll tape it up, and you know, we need some extra help." And so I said I'd give it a try. So they did that. Took the cast off, taped it up. I played in Chicago the first game, and here are the boards, you know, and here comes Bobby Hull down, you know, and my ankle is like that, not like that, like that. I can't turn that way. I can't. So I got to move over and give Hull the hole in the middle so that I can turn that way and go with him. And so I played the rest of the year with that ankle, and it bothered me all year. And they even fined us, the whole team, for not giving enough effort. And so that summer I had a cottage at Cedar Island, just outside, near Windsor there, outside of Detroit. And we had a sandy beach, and I ran all summer barefoot on that sandy beach. And then if it rained, I took a tennis ball and I ran my foot over and over that tennis ball. So now next year, I see stories in the paper that, you know, I had a bad year. You know, and I read the paper and I saw that. I thought, well, the management knows what I went through. Maybe the writers don't know, but the management knows, and so I'm not worried about that. So the next year we start, we're having a better year, and we come into Toronto to play. Trent Frank asked me for an interview at the Royal York Hotel, and I go with Trent up to the room, and I tell him, and he says, "You know, Red, the team is playing better this year." I said, "Well," he said, "How come?" I said, "Well, I don't know, you know, sometimes you have better years, you know." And he said, "Well, come on." He said, "How about you? You seem to be playing better." Well, you know, if that happens, he said, "Well, come on now." He kind of got a clue that there was, I guess, that I wasn't coming out and telling them. And usually you didn't tell things to the writers. You didn't tell things because you didn't want stories going out and you were getting in trouble over saying something. So you usually just didn't say anything, and were very little. And so, but I thought, well, no harm now. If they knew about it, the other players, the other teams, they'd be taking whack at my ankle. When it's broke, I'd be out of the game. But my ankle's fine now, so I got no problem. And so I told them the story. I said exactly as it happened. Now I go back to Detroit the next day, and Ted Lindsay's wife, Pat, called my wife and said, "Have you got your bags packed?" This was in the morning. And I said, "What do you mean? What do you mean?" She said, "You got your bag? Have you read the paper?" "No," she said. "So, well, you better look." And so I went downtown at the newsstand, and there was the headlines in the Free Press by Marshall Dan, about this high, "Was Red